Thank you very much, and welcome to the July, I nearly forgot what month it was, July Cabinet meeting of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. My name is Stephen Cowan. I'm the leader of the borough, and I would like to begin with a few housekeeping points. This session is being live streamed and will be kept as a record. So if you are here, you agree to be live streamed, as it were. If a fire alarm sounds either continuously or intermittently, I'll adjourn the meeting. Please leave the meeting in an orderly fashion by the staff fire exit. And when speaking, please ensure you are close to the microphone and speaking directly into it. Can I confirm the members of the Cabinet? But can I start by welcoming the new Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Alex Sanderson? And can I also congratulate the former Deputy Leader of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, Ben Coleman MP, for becoming an MP to represent Chelsea and Fulham. It will be a relief to us and thousands of people across the constituency to have such a talented and hardworking and genuinely caring MP. So we wish you well, Ben, as you go into Parliament and stand up for the people of Chelsea and Fulham. Thank you, Ben Coleman. Right, let's start off with further introductions. We go from our left, Councillor Sharon Holder. Do you want to and then work our way around and everyone just introduce themselves and say good evening?
Councillor Sharon Holder, Cabinet Member for Public Realm.
Councillor Wesley Harcourt, Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Ecology. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Zarar Kim, Cabinet Member of Enterprise and Skills.
Hello, Councillor Francis Ume, Cabinet Member for Housing and Homelessness.
Good evening, Councillor Rowenery, Cabinet Member for Finance and Reform.
I'll pass over, introduced Alex, so she's here, so I'll pass over straight to you, Rebecca.
Good evening, Councillor Rebecca Harvey, Cabinet Member for Social Inclusion and Community Safety.
Good evening, Councillor Andrew Jones. I'm Cabinet Member for the Economy.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Bora Kwan, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Health.
And can I welcome you, Bora, to your new position as Cabinet Member for, as you just said, Adult Social Care and Public Health. So thank you for taking on that important role. And can we also welcome Zarar to his formal position, who's had to give up his position as President of the Enterprise Board to become Cabinet Member. But although the title's not as good, certainly I think you find the agenda is more exciting. Thank you. Okay, great. Well, we have a member of the opposition here, Councillor Jose Alfonso. So welcome to the Cabinet meeting. Sharon Lee, I'm sorry to say, is ill. And so I've instructed her not to come in, as valiant as she is at such attempts. But instead, we have Savinda here, who is stepping in, who's our Director of Finance and Reform. Nice to see you. And we have Grant Degg, Director of Legal Services in attendance. So thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. Are the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting held on the 3rd of June agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Are there any apologies? I have, there's none. Okay. Declarations of interest. I see 2 hands go up in Councillor Harcourt and Councillor Holder.
Yeah, I declare an interest. I'm a trustee of the Citizens Advice, and I've been advised to obviously not vote, but to move to the back of the room during the course of the debate.
Leader. Similarly, I'm a trustee at the Lyric Theatre for the same reasons as Councillor Harcourt. I will also likewise retreat to the back of the room for the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Kwan. Councillor Holder?
Yes, similar to my other 2 colleagues, I'm a trustee of Action on Disability and will also be declaring an interest and moving to the back of the room.
Thank you for doing that. I know you've taken advice on that, so thank you for performing that legal act. Does anybody else have any responsibilities or is there any trust or outside bodies? No? in which case I'll close that item and move on to item number 4, third sector investment fund strategy report. So Councillor Harcourt, Councillor Kwon and Councillor Holder are all vacating their positions. All right, Councillor Harvey, do you want to talk us through the report?
So the third sector investment fund strategy report sets out our priorities and principles for the award of grants under the third sector investment fund round to be launched in 2024-2025 and implemented in 2025-2026. It details the council's intention to strengthen its support for the voluntary and community sector so that we can better support our residents. The priorities and principles of the grants round have been drawn down from existing council strategies and from our work with the voluntary sector, which has been grouped under Hammersmith and Fulham core values. Residents' views have been sought and factored in, and we're doing a particular focus on disabled residents. The priorities will help Hammersmith Fulham be a borough of resilience to change during unprecedented circumstances. The council is facing considerable demographic legislation and financial pressures. It's important that the planned investment is delivered in a financially efficient and effective manner in line with council's values. Consequently, there'll be an expectation that successful organisations will be able to showcase and demonstrate the outcomes being delivered. The council will be investing 3.9 million in our voluntary and community sector to ensure together that we're able to improve the quality of life for our residents. The grants will be awarded under a number of thematic areas set out in our corporate plan and set out in the report. The council, through the strategy paper, is committed to supporting residents in the third sector by renewing our grant funding strategy. As we seek value for money for our residents, we want to strengthen our third sector through our renewed third sector strategy. Investing 3.9 million is intended to deliver a broad range of council priorities, for which we're calling on the voluntary sector to rise to the challenge and urgently tackle the big issues through both traditional and non-traditional routes. The recommendations in the report are as follows: to launch a third sector investment fund round under the 7 priority areas set out in the paper, that the newly allocated funding will run from the 1st of April 2025 to the 31st March 2028, with the option to extend by 1 more year to 2029. To approve the establishment of a framework for the approval of grants falling within the third sector investment fund. Under this framework, the Cabinet grants delegated authority for the award of grants funded from the 1st of April 25 to the 31st of March 2028, with a potential extension of 1 year to the Executive Director of Finance and Corporate Services in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Social Inclusion and Community Safety. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much. Any questions on that? Okay, all I would say is it seems like we've come a long way in this agenda, so thank you very much, Councillor Harvey. I remember when we first were given office by the residents of this borough, that the first big decision we made was to stop the Lyric going bankrupt with a £5 million capital loan. Okay, thanks, Rob. I'm sorry. I would say it feels like we've come a long way on this agenda. I remember when we first were given office by the residents of Hammersmith and Fulham. One of the first decisions we were confronted with was the imminent bankruptcy of the Lyric Theatre. And to save that, they needed an immediate loan of £5 million, which would have been the biggest record loan we'd ever given. Not only did we give that loan, we then realized they would not be able to pay it back, but made a significant investment by writing off that and letting them have that £5 million. That's why the Lyric Theatre is a thriving theatre, but also does a tremendous amount of work for our young people, getting people from often challenged backgrounds into the arts who would not normally be in the arts. It's one of the great cultural icons of Hammersmith and Fulham, and it's certainly our key asset in our cultural offer. So it's good that we are looking at them and may indeed increase funding. Many others, like the Law Centre, we also were facing closure, and we funded them the poorest people often do not have legal advice. So to make sure that they can is a vital part. Despite those successes, I would say we are a value for money driven authority. We have ruthless financial efficiency as one of our values. And that means we expect all the organizations that we may give a grant to meet those criteria of ruthless financial efficiency. We're not a process organization. We focus on outcomes, and anyone we fund has to prove that we're delivering outcomes. And I think that will be a way that all public sector funding moves to as we go to this round. So thank you for the work that sets out that framework, confirms our commitment to building a kinder borough. If there are no questions on this, having asked already, I will ask, are we happy to move to a vote? Is that approved? Yeah. Thank you very much. Then can I call the Councillor Con, Councillor Harcourt and Councillor Holder to return to their seats, please? Right, item number 5, Queen's Mill transitional funding. I pass this item to the Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Leader. Last month, the Department of Education, as the responsible body, and Queen's Mill agreed to a voluntary transfer of the school to a new academy trust, which is being brokered by the DfE. Ormiston Academy Trust has been identified by the department as the new academy sponsor for Queen's Mill School. This report seeks approval for us to work together with Queen's Mill, Ormiston Academy Trust, the Department of Education and the Education and Skills Funding Agency to develop transitional funding for this process.
Okay, any questions on this?
Yes.
Please.
Good evening. Thank you for your report. So it's been actually heartbreaking for me to hear from Queen's Mill parents how they feel let down by LBHF throughout this entire process. So I do, if I may, and congratulations on becoming the new Deputy Leader. Why have you taken the political decision to not provide an uplift in top-up funding for Queen's Mill since 2021, unlike other local authorities?
Thank you. So that's not actually a question relating to this paper. This paper is about transitional funding following the DfE transfer to a new academy trust. I'm happy to take that question separately and talk to you separately about Queen's Mill, but this is specifically about transitional funding for the agents for the transfer of the academy trust.
Can I ask, do you have any questions about this paper?
Yes, I do.
Go on.
But I would state that this is absolutely related to this paper because it's how we got here. But anyway, so what criteria has been determined, which criteria has been applied to determine which children get the interim transitional funding? And if it's not all children LBHF places, then why?
I am going to come back to you with a written answer because obviously that involves quite a lot of sensitive information about different children, different care packages, different support packages in schools, and it's much more complex than an answer I can give here, but very happy to come back to you with a written answer.
I would just say this is a paper that sets out to move Queen's Mill School to the next stage. It's very clear in what that paper does. I would just say it's like disingenuous to say that there's concern to raise the concerns that you're raising. You know, this administration has put record amounts of funding into children with learning disabilities. Indeed, when we came into office, the first meetings that I had as the leader, and there were many challenges on my time back then, were at Queen's Mill School to talk about the shocking special educational needs transport service, which nearly killed one of the children, and which we could not get the then Conservative administration to listen to. So there are always genuine challenges. The specific points that you raise will be dealt with in a letter from the Deputy Leader. Many of them are matters of technocratic officer consideration, and there's always disputes on who deserves what money, but Queen's Mill has had a tremendous amount of money from this local authority, and more importantly, the children that Queen's Mill serves will always be a priority for this administration, which is why we put record amounts of funding into special educational needs. Okay, on that basis then, is there a is this item agreed? Agreed. Thank you. My next item, Hammersmith Town Supplementary Planning Document. Andrew, do you want to set out the details of that, please?
Thank you. So this is a supplementary planning document, which is something that's an adjunct to the local plan that we have. So it's a more of a, as the report outlines, it's something that comes in addition to that. It's not a replacement for the local plan. As the report also points out, we have begun a process of reviewing the local plan, and that really sets the context for this supplementary planning document. The work around it goes back to 2019. There was extensive discussion to a resident-led engagement in Hammersmith about the nature of the master plan we should have for Hammersmith Town Centre for King Street, where we are at the moment. Clearly, local plans, the main planning document, they only come around over a longer period of time. And one of the major things that this supplementary document does is really move things on over issues that have become very pressing and important in the last period. As you will see, there are a set of appendices that talk about the planning response to climate change and climate challenge. It talks about inclusion. It also talks about the regeneration of the town centre in King Street and the central part of Hammersmith. Obviously, in the intervening period, we have had the pandemic, which has posed new challenges, both for high streets and in terms of what is within the planning framework. So lots of historic engagement, a very much needed supplementary piece of planning guidance, which has moved on from a period when we, before the pandemic, when we had planning policy in place that is somewhat more historic. The document's obviously quite substantial, so there are a number of areas of central Hammersmith that it talks about in more depth. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any, what's that? Yeah, are there any questions on this item?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you for your report. I note and welcome the fact that there are likely to be 2,800 new homes out of this project. And I saw that 1,400 of those are likely to be genuinely affordable. Does LBHF in the future plan to buy any of these for its own stock?
So at risk of sounding, so this is a planning document that sets out the sort of frame of the broader affordable housing provision. We have a whole range of ways of providing affordable housing. We're obviously building a great deal of it in the civic campus regeneration, which is part of the scope of this area. So the short answer is there are a range of provisions. Some of these houses we are building ourselves through the local authorities' internal development. Others are being built by others. This is obviously the planning frame that sets out the level of affordable housing provision within central Hammersmith in response to housing need. So the short answer is yes, but it's not really that pertinent to a planning document.
Fully get that. Just one more.
Yeah.
The proposal for the tunnel was an interesting one. Do we suspect that will be done quicker than Hammersmith Bridge was repaired, or do we expect it in 2050?
I'm very happy to answer that question. Firstly, on Hammersmith Bridge, I would say if there's one thing Greg Hamilton regrets as the MP is politicising that issue. I dealt with ministers, I think, every 2 weeks, and it was no doubt in my mind, or indeed my colleagues' mind, the Lib Dem leader of Richmond, that they were just playing games with it because Greg had persuaded them that there was party politics to be had in making people angry about the closure of Hammersmith Bridge. I thought that you might remember on the, I think it was 9th of August 2019, or the 1st of August 2019, Greg Hands held a public meeting and told the residents that he had advised the government not to give any money to the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham for Hammersmith Bridge. That combination led, I would say, to one of the most stressful and stupid periods of my time as the leader of this council. I had to sit with Grant Shapps, the Secretary of State, and ask him how he'd got on with Greg when Greg had proposed that he could have a new bridge built for £7 million. And the embarrassment on Grant Shapps' face, I think, said it all. As he explained, he didn't think it would be feasible. That was the type of shenanigans that went with Hammersmith. The truth about Hammersmith Bridge is it is a 136-year-old piece of technology made actually to early 19th century technology, pre-galvanized steel, which is why it's made out of wrought iron, cast iron, and wood. When we came into office in 2014, we asked the question, is it safe? Because it looked battered and beaten then. The officers assured us it was. We asked the question, When was the last time it was checked? And they said it hadn't been. So we decided to take the unusual step of checking it. And checking it, every time we peeled back a bit of the bridge, we found that there was something wrong with it, and which required very different engineers. We brought people in from California, we brought technology in from the United States as well, and eventually found that there was 70 years of untreated corrosion that caused the bridge at imminent risk of imminent collapse. Any politician given the advice that the bridge, a suspension bridge, is at risk of imminent collapse, has a duty to act on that advice. I acted on that twice, first to close it to cars, then to close it to pedestrians. It was closed to pedestrians after the 6 hottest days in British history since 1965, and the cracks in the pedestals that hold the suspension structure up shot up in size to the extent that engineers said they thought it might collapse. Now, since then, we've spent £30 million of Hammersmith and Fulham residents' money fixing this damn bridge. To put this into context, between 2010 and 2021, all 33 London local authorities spent just £100 million on all bridges. Throughout that period, it would have been handy to have an MP in Chelsea and Fulham who I could pick up the phone to and say, this is very difficult, can we work together a plan? We all share the same constituents and the same needs. We never had that. What we had, even as recently as the general election, was ridiculous statements that if he was re-elected, he would get Hammersmith Bridge reopened. Same statement as he made when he was the campaign manager for Sean Bailey in the mayoral election. Same statement he made when advising the former Conservative MP for Barnes. It's ridiculous, but more importantly than that, it's the type of politics that has no right to exist in this country. It pollutes the debate. We should base our debate on facts. So if you want to talk about Hammersmith Bridge, understand the facts, recognise that it's going to cost £250 million to fix, to get it up and running again. And all governments, after the 14 years of wreckage that's been laid waste by the Conservative government to this economy, are going to struggle to find £250 million. We have put in a plan to put tolls, something Greg opposed, on the bridge so that we could pay our third. And let's just put that third into context. Most councils pay 10% for a bridge. We're paying a third on top of the 30 million that we've already been asked. So we are in talks with the new government on how we get Hammersmith Bridge fixed. In reality, it is an ancient piece of British engineering, and it should be preserved. One of the advantages of having a fly under, which we think is the type of Keynesian economics to get London working, is that you could put a branch under the Thames to come up somewhere on the South Bank, possibly in the A3. Tunnelling technology is significantly cheaper, and we can reclaim all the land from the A4 and monetize that to pay off the infrastructure cost. That will take a very different type of governmental thinking to what we've had. It takes a more interventionist government, and they have got a lot of fish to fry. So our proposal to them is we will give you the plan, and if you can, we would like to do this. But I wouldn't be flippant about it. These are serious issues that affect the people of South West London. And what we need to do is to move to a politics where we have a sensible, evidence-based conversation. And where we disagree, we disagree. Where we agree. But one should not tell blatant untruths that this bridge closed because it was a Labour administration for 4 years. It was nonsense. And it needlessly wound a whole bunch of people up, many of whom led some ridiculous protests demanding the bridge was immediately reopened, which would have collapsed. So I hope that answers your question on that. On housing, this is, as my colleague says here, a planning document. This administration is building 3,000 affordable homes, largely funded from money we've negotiated from developers. That is a British record. We're a tiny borough. Look at us on the map of London. 3,000 genuinely affordable homes, with the addition of an extra 1,400 coming in through this London plan, through this Hammersmith plan. That will make a real dent to what is a housing crisis market, which now affects people from their 20s all the way up to their early 50s. People locked in private renter sector housing, people who cannot get affordable places to live. It damages the economy. It's wrong for social justice. And that's why we're setting about fixing it. We haven't previously prioritised council-owned housing because the last Conservative administration offered all of it for sale to developers, many of them the wrong type of developers, many of them tremendously bad companies. And we were of the view that this was a politically contentious area, and if the Conservatives came back, they would do all of that again. So we prioritised housing association housing. I think we're in a different realm now, and we may well do more council housing, but that is not a matter for this paper. It's a matter for a different political decision, which we will make as and when. Are there any more? I can see you've come and you wanted, I'm told you wanted to ask a question about this paper. Can you go to this microphone, please? You'll need to stand up. Grant, would you give him, yeah, all right.
Thank you. The question I have relates to the proposal for the gyratory. My understanding, looking at the document, is that in a 2 to 3 year time span, the proposal is to make the gyratory two-way traffic and create open spaces by St. Paul's Church. I just wanted a clarification as to whether that was true or not.
I think I might turn to Officer Colin.
Sorry.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, there's various options in the Hammersmith SBD document, and obviously we're looking at ways we can actually manage the traffic in a better way. And one of the options would be to actually look at the gyratory, but there's no firm proposals at the present moment. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all I would say is, look, there's always proposals made forward by expert highways officers. And what my response has always been is to look at that proposals. There are many people on the traffic issue who've got very strong opinions, most of them half the time, not necessarily relating to the evidence. And so what I would simply say is what the process we've always done in Hammersmith and Fulham is to take out genuine consultations, ask people what they think if we have a proposal, and then to make a decision. Even when we make a decision at the Cabinet, then that would be open to public scrutiny, such as I've just allowed you to do here. Normally, you would have to submit a petition or something, but I'm quite happy in this circumstance to let you have a question. But so, you know, I would just warn, if there's sort of rumours floating around that this is going to happen, I would quash them, because there's been a lot, you know, because there's, you know, they can be very dangerous on this particular agenda item. And I've seen some crazy things recently and crazy things said, none of which have had much truth to them. So that, you know, I would just say that this is just one of many options being looked at, as you heard from the officer, and people should remain calm and carry on. Okay. All right. If that item is quite clear, then, you know, this started with a, in 2014, we set up the largest consultation on the supplementary Hammersmith planning document that the council had ever done. To a degree, I think it's one of the first mistakes we made, because we let an officer chair it. And so we ended up with something that looked a bit like a lot of tall buildings going into central Hammersmith, despite having turned down some of the requests for tall buildings from the former mayor. We then kindly asked Richard Winterton, Melanie Whitlock, and Alan Bird to take a review of this again and see if we could knock something up that was more in line with what we all thought was right for Hammersmith. I know there's some things in here which are good, and there's some things in here that don't, you know, that don't necessarily meet everyone's aspirations. But I think it's got us to a place now where we have a supplementary planning document which will strengthen our planning powers and sets the tone of where we're going to go in the future. So on that basis, I think, you know, it's good that we've got it here today. And it's 10 years of coming, and so I'm glad we've actually now closed this chapter and look forward to the next one. Is that agreed? Agreed. Right. In that case, thank you very much. Forward plan of decisions, are they noted? In that case, I bring the July 2024 Cabinet meeting for the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham